Hi, I'm Cassandra Vohs-Demann, and this is the A Place to Shine podcast. Let's do this.
Well, all I can say, all I can say, well, all I can say is here I am, yeah.
I'm here with Kimberly Dahlem on the A Place to Shine podcast, and I'm so excited because you are actually the first official live video interview that I am doing for the podcast. And I can't tell you how excited I am. So all of the technology appears to be working properly.
Fantastic. That's a great
That
first.
makes me so happy.
A great first.
So first I want to just say we met by happenstance. Do you want to tell everybody a little bit about how we met?
Absolutely. I was in leadership, Greater McHenry County, LGMC. I always say greatest class ever, class of 2024 last year. And you came in as a guest speaker for one of our first large group days. And your message was so compassionate, really uplifting, and hit me so hard that I remember when we took a break, I went to the restroom and I came back and I felt that I wanted to reach out and just hug you. And that stuck with me. And you talked a little bit about you had your executive coaching business, but there were many things within your story. You were personal within your story as well. We won't get into that here, but I was just so amazed. And so it sat with me and sat with me. And as I was continuing to grow personally, professionally through the journey in our county for the year, it just kept chipping away. And then I went through a life change that I was going to make a career change. And I thought, okay, I'm going to hire a therapist and I'm hiring an executive coach and I want Cassandra. And I remember I reached out and I was like, you're not going to remember me, but I was one of the ladies in the back of the room when you were entertaining and playing on your guitar and having us all sing Kumbaya.
I did not have them sing Kumbaya. That is not
You did
what
not.
I did. I did have them sing, but not Kumbaya.
And we were in the beautiful prairie land there. So it was majestic. And that is how we met. And I said, hey, are you open to taking on a client? And you squeezed me in and we were off to the races. It was great.
I absolutely loved working with you. And I did remember her because she was in the bathroom and she was coming out of the bathroom. I was going in the bathroom. And when she contacted me, I knew who it was. I knew that it was you. So I was like, I just had a feeling. So
it was a good connection of energy just in that space. So I'm glad we revisited it. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and that was one of the reasons why I wanted you to be my first interview guest, because one, you were a fantastic client. Two, you're an amazing human being. And three, so gifted. And I wanted to just help you launch your things and support you in what you're doing, not just because she was a client, but because she actually is doing amazing things in the world.
Oh, thank you.
And so Kimberly owns Dahlem Enterprises, and she is the founder. She specializes in executive coaching with a counseling flair, exemplifying stakeholder engagement, change management, and strategic planning for the good of the individual and group development. So she's a powerhouse, which is awesome. And it sounds like you have a book, too, which we'll get to later, that you're working on.
Yeah.
Which I'm really excited about. So hearing more about that. So I want to start with, you have had quite a journey.
I would say so, yes.
And we don't have to go into all of it. But one of the things that you talk about is pivot points. Mm-hmm. And those critical moments of change, right? And can you share a defining pivot point in your own journey and how it shaped the way you coach and consult now?
Yes, I would say losing my husband was a pivot point, and not to bring this down or sad, because we will all lose people we love in our life, but it caused me to reflect differently on my journey and what I wanted to do with the time that I have left on this earth. And so that really carried me through as to wanting to make change. And so the lens by which I worked as, an educator, as a counselor, as a leader within the county and the community it changed how I approached everything. And I think every time we hit a pivot point, we can choose to let that level us, or we can level up. And I think with my sense of gratitude, I always looked at it to say, okay, what do I learn from this situation? Sit with it, let it hurt, or let it just feel whatever you're going to feel, and then decide, like, let's pick it up. What's next? What are we going to do? And so that would be a very big defining one. And then the second defining one would be when I made the deliberate decision to step out of the public education arena, but continue to manage, lead, and support individuals. And that was a big pivot point as well.
Thank you for that, because I think that experience always sort of drives how we help other people.
Agreed.
And as hard as some of those experiences can be, they do bring a rich resource for people. So resilience.
Yeah.
So I know that resilience is a key trait in leadership.
It certainly is. It certainly is.
So how do you help leaders and teams build resilience?
First of all, meet them where they're at and find out how it is that they define it. I think people define resilience many different ways. And so leaning into that piece and where they're at, and then figuring out what does it take for them to feel whole again, or feel that they can be all in or part in to move forward. That would probably be not the most eloquent way, but the easiest way to describe it. How resilient are they? And I think a piece that I have found and that I love that I bring to practice is so often we forget about the actual human in the workplace because we're set in a process, and we're set in management, and we're set in really just tailoring things to the next, to get to the next, and talking about we care about people and we want to really help individuals, but they have to really fit into that square peg to move forward. Lots of times we don't stop, but we talk that we do. And so I think the resilience piece is trying to meet them where they're at, figure out where they have been, how do they fit in the overall structure, and what do they need to be able to move forward in their most powerful self, and whatever that looks like and however they define it.
Yeah, because ultimately humans are being human no matter where they are.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
it's like sometimes we forget that humans are still human, even if they're in the workplace, even if they're in business, even if they're leaders. It's not always easy. And so I think that's really important to at least acknowledge people where they are. I was having a conversation. Well, it was part of the workshop I actually taught at Leadership Greater McHenry County, was how you show up matters.
Yeah.
To really understand impact and how you impact the people that you serve, but also how you show up, how the experiences you have, and then what they do with that can make or break an organization. It can make or break a business. It can make or break a relationship. So I think it's important to see people always as human, no matter what the job situation is.
It's the core of coactive coaching and that model, working on the personal and working on the professional side. And many times there's just not enough time, like in a work day or a workspace. And so when an individual can commit to that, maybe outside of the work setting, or the actual organization can commit to that, to provide it for an individual or a group within their business, it really pays off in dividends. It truly, truly does. And it generally can't happen with somebody from the inside, because no matter what, they're looking over their shoulder, or they're afraid it's going to become part of a supervisory reporting, or it will put a judgment on them where they might not be invited to certain rooms or groups or committees. So when it truly happens on the outside in a very private matter, that it's not going to be reported back, that's where you really see the true growth, because they can take off, I always talk about armor, because I always felt like I always had to put it on. They can take off their armor and really just talk and be challenged. And it's not about like answering the questions for them. It's about helping to guide them to their own answers as they're ready, if that makes sense.
Oh, it makes 100% sense.
Yeah.
It's because I've been a coach for 30 plus years, doing it in various ways, obviously. And even back in the day when I used to coach high school kids in voice, they would take something that I said before they would listen to their parent.
Yeah.
So even if the parent said something, they would come to me and I would say, well, maybe you should think about this. The next thing I know, I can get a text from a parent going, I don't know what you said, but I've been saying this for like 10 years. No.
You're like, I'm just magic.
But
I just made it happen.
it's about creating that safe space. And I think especially because there isn't anything that a coach needs from them.
Right. Right.
They're not looking to get anything from them.
Right.
They're just there to serve them and help them grow. And I think that's part of why it works, because if you're in your work situation, and even if you're like going to HR, you're going to different people, or you're talking, getting coaching within the organization, there's always that chance that you feel a little off, right? That you're not sure you can be completely free with what you say. And so I mean, I've always been an advocate of coaching, because I think that it's where people can do, I think in some cases, the most growth, because they can really see, how they operate within things, but how they function in their job, how they function in life, how they want to direct themselves in any given situation. And I think it's an important piece. So to that point, you're an executive coach. Executive coaching comes in many forms. So what makes your approach, blending counseling, stakeholder engagement, and strategic planning, stand out from other coaching?
You hit on it. So it's the counseling piece of that.
Yeah.
And when I was called to this line of work, I thought, no way. Their coaches are a dime a dozen. And then I thought, well, they're really not, because I only knew that I wanted to work with you. And you brought something so special to the table. And then as I got into the business, because I hired a counselor, a therapist, and I hired you at the same time. This is like a long answer to the question. And I knew that was what would light my fire to help people and to move forward. And I remember very specifically in some of our sessions, because I was processing through a lot. I took time to process, post-pandemic and being a mom and being a widow, all of those things, as well as making a career change. And we'd get to some tasks, if you will, like that we were doing in our work together, and I'd say, okay, no, Cassandra, hold on, this one goes on the books for therapy, and I go to therapy. So then, how do we pivot back? And so when I thought about that, I thought, wow, I have this abundant knowledge, having my master's in counseling and having had done counseling in the school and some of the family work, that I thought, wow, that piece would really blend. And so I gave it a try as I got going with individuals that had reached out, and they had reached out originally for mentorship. So this wasn't just written, here's the business plan, it goes. It morphed. But quite honestly, it was like the perfect mix for who I am, and as just Kimberly, showing up in this world to be able to help individuals. And so those are the individuals by word of mouth that have been drawn to me, that it truly is the blend between a therapeutic counseling piece and executive coaching, where some of the more rote tasks that we have within executive coaching. So that's been nice. And then the non-negotiable, that if I'm hired on by a company, that I'm not reporting back to the business owner unless it's something that is going to injure somebody, within the company. Other than that, it is hands off. You'll see the deliverables and the change if you let the process happen. And now that I've been at it for a year and watching those rewards come back just by seeing individuals level up within their workplace, level up in their relationships, and then organizations kind of have a question and then send another individual through the paces, it's pretty awesome. And so that's how I would say that my work is a little bit different than some of the other work that you would have out there. Not that you can't find others. I think being a teacher by heart, being a counselor by heart, I come at it in a different way that somebody else that might have just come through HR. They might have come through an HR sense, or they might have come from business into this. So I think we all bring a different flavor, and I'm not everybody's. and that's okay too. I've always been okay with that, but that's what I would say sets my work as an executive coach in Dahlem Enterprises apart from other coaching that's out there.
I love that. I've been excited to just kind of follow you in your journey over the last year, especially on LinkedIn, and actually seeing you on another podcast.
Oh, yeah.
And putting yourself out there more. And that's exciting to see. That's really exciting to see.
Was really nerve-wracking for me, and you probably heard it on the first podcast, but in our work together, vulnerability does not come easy for me. I am very much a professional, and it's not easy to speak about, I guess, private parts of my life, and I think it's important and it's powerful because it helps others. And it helps others to be able to feel okay to tell their story. And now I'm glad. But as you know, in our work, it took me a long time. It was in my goal list. And then I was like, I can't get on camera. I can't speak about things. I'm not going to do that. And quite honestly, it's been so freeing to finally do that. The writing came back to me quickly, but being able to put it out there, I couldn't. But I was so excited to come sit with you today. And I feel like I ripped the Band-Aid off on that first podcast that I was like, well, it's all out here. So now it's just, I do feel like I'm completely in my own skin and not having an out-of-body experience like I was the first time. But I'm also, with a person that I've grown to really know and adore. And you were an amazing coach to me. And I love how we support each other in our careers in a true way, because some people say they'll do that and they don't, but like you are the genuine bomb of like, yes, like I'm here, I'm standing with you, I'm gonna walk with you. Remember the phrase I said, those that are close to me will stand in front and cheer me on, walk alongside so you never are walking alone, and are right behind you if you ever fall back and you need that.
Yeah.
And you've been one of those people in my life.
Oh, it made me cry. It's why I do this. It's why I've done what I do for 30 plus years. Yeah. It's, and I think elevating people's voices and helping them find their voice, a lot of times, sometimes it's just finding it initially. Sometimes it's finding it after, hard things happen or transitions happen or, just being able to step into your power, whatever that looks like, lights me up. Yeah. And I used to get feedback all the time whenever I would watch people that I'd coached or watch people that I was working with, and I would be sitting in the audience and they could literally see me being like, like I'm right with them the whole time, and it's, I thank you for saying that, because it really is my heart.
Yeah, I can tell.
It really is my heart.
Yeah.
It's not an act. It's why my company has always had the word shine in it, right? Because I really do absolutely love to see people like just do them and do it big and do it beautiful. You
would always say, like, you were there to help as I figured out what my next best version of myself was. And I think that is such a powerful sentiment, because we're all on this journey together, and people come in and out during different seasons and our peaks and valleys. And I think I was like coming out of a valley. I didn't know where I was. I was kind of like, I don't know. And then I'd be like, well, maybe I'll just run back to safety. Maybe not. Yeah. And you would just keep me kind of like on this path, and you knew how to like cater to each of the sessions to empower me for that like next thought. Almost like you could see some of my staircase and I couldn't, because I was just still a little cloudy. And it's very genuine in your work. And I feel like I've taken those pieces with me, and I've remembered pieces of that as I'm sitting with a client, with a cup of coffee, or just, sitting on a Zoom. And I'm like, gosh, I remember when I was right where that person is. And you don't share that with them, right, but it's right. Wow. And then I'm like, okay. And then you kind of press on where might their next pivot point be in a different way, other than like pivot points of experiences. Where's their next pivot in their growth journey for the time that I have them. And you're helping them discover that. And that's where the joy is, at least for me. I don't know about you, but like helping people discover that and be able to have some clarity.
but also believe in themselves again if they need to, makes a huge difference.
And I find that with folks, a lot of the clients, like they're afraid to change or afraid to move forward. And
change is scary. I mean, change is scary, but I also know that sometimes change is what is required for growth.
Yeah.
Sometimes change is required when you feel stuck, is you just have to kind of jump in and try something different. My therapist, I talk about her all the time because she's great, but she is always the one to say, follow your joy, and she's been trying to get me to do that in the last 6 months, and she's really been, where did you find joy in the past? Where did you find joy that you feel like you want to bring forward into your future career and life? Because as you know, I have been in a transition as well, which I've talked quite a bit about in my podcast. So what a great conversation we're having. Aren't you enjoying this? It's like I love this.
It's joyful.
So I have some questions, and then we're going to you have some text from a book you're working on, which I want you to get to if you would,
sure. Yeah.
Which is exciting. I have some questions that I'm going to be starting to ask every guest, so I've put some of these questions together.
Okay, and I haven't seen these. I don't know.
No, she has no idea what I'm going to ask.
Okay.
So can you share a moment when you had to fully trust your voice? Whether in leadership, a tough conversation, or a decision, and then how did that shape you? When you actually stepped in and trusted your own voice.
Sure. Career-wise, when I knew I was going to step away, that was a piece where I had to sit with and make sure that I was thinking through it and knowing that I would have to, sit in my powerful space to use my voice to just say no more, and that I was going to move forward. That would probably be one that really sits with me. And I'm proud of the outcome. I'm proud of making that move.
And that was a big deal for you to actually make that decision for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, because you have a lot of responsibilities, I'm raising 2 young adults, and they are used to me being there for them, but providing for them. And to make a change that I made, there had to be some uncertainty for me to make that move. But I also knew that I couldn't remain in the space that I was, because I was just feeling that it was time to move on. And so there's not much more to that, but yes, so that made it a little bit, I don't know, nerve-wracking, but then also super peaceful. Like once I made the decision, I was like, okay, which I think is really the way that I've moved through life, because I trust myself. Sometimes I have to remind myself that I trust myself. Does that make sense?
It makes 100%. I mean, I put that is on my actual website that says when you trust yourself, you people trust you.
Yeah.
And when you know yourself, and that can be obviously evolving, throughout time and life.
Definitely.
But that confidence comes when you trust yourself. And there are going to be those days that are going to test that.
Yeah.
But I think that continually coming back to yourself and asking yourself, what do I need? What do I want?
Yeah.
What brings me joy?
Yeah.
What's my next step? Because it's easy to take input from a million different places.
Yes.
And feel like you're, I like to call it, squirrel, right? You're jumping around. Ultimately, it's always about coming back to yourself and saying, how do I stand in my own power and peacefulness and contentment, because that's all that matters.
Yes.
That's all that really matters.
It does.
So this is my impact question. So how do you hope your work influences others? What's the bigger impact you want to make in the world?
To continue to motivate others to take risks and to take chances and to lean into what their inner voice is saying without trepidation or fear of moving forward. I think that piece. And the other piece is to help others to feel okay to share their story. And that took me a long time to be willing to share that outwardly. And now that I have, it's been like the most freeing experience. And it's still professional in a sense. I mean, I'm not off the rails, but to help others be inspired to utilize what their pivot points have been to level up, to continue to contribute to society in a positive manner, and to really be true to themselves as to what the next best version of themselves is.
That sounds familiar.
100%. I don't know, maybe a little birdie. And to walk away from people and things that don't serve you anymore. That is okay. Mel Robbins is super popular right now. Most of her I guess her phrases, her methodology are things that I do agree with. There's some that maybe I don't, and that's why we're all our own unique writer and creator in this way. But the let them theory, I do agree with that. You know, let others be and continue to be me.
Exactly. I just hosted a book group here.
Did you?
For Let Them Theory, yeah, and we had about 7 women here, and it was really interesting. I talked about it just very briefly in my last episode, but it was really interesting to me to have this table full of really powerful, really gifted, really amazing women who do beautiful things in the world and are out there just trying to be of service in so many ways, having their own self-doubts, having their own sense of loneliness, having their own struggles with feeling like, especially, you know, in our age group, that sometimes it's hard to find, you know, even just the friends that you need that understand you. But there was a lot of similarities within all the women, and they were all dealing with the let thems in a myriad of ways. But the biggest one was sort of the let me part. It was, okay, I have to let them, but then what do I do with this? Yeah. And I think that comes back to what we were just talking about, which is the self-trust part. It's like I have to trust myself to know what I need to do next in response to that, in relation to that, and make sure that I'm staying settled in myself. And I think that a lot of people were in such a reactive place all the time.
Don't you think that's because folks don't know how to or have forgotten how to be still?
100%.
That was my when I figured that back out, I was like, wow. Because I was just on the go all the time. And so there was never that time. Sure, I would journal and take like this timed amount, like 15 minutes in the morning, right? So like, I'm going to journal, I'm going to reflect, I'm going to move on with my day. And it was a practice, but there wasn't stillness. And once I came back to that space, which I've been to a couple other times in my life, I was like, oh, it's just all showing up now. Because I was letting myself just be me. Now, the let them was easier for me because I think it was just part of my work. It was part of who I was growing through the system. When you're a public figure and when you are working with public, you have to just let them. You just have to continue to move forward knowing you're the child or the client or whoever you're working with. Like, that's the most important. Let the zealous partisans and the loud noise, like that clatter, you just let go, roll and go. And I've always let that roll and go both publicly and privately. Because you're not going to be popular to everybody, and that doesn't matter. Because who matters is there, who matters shows up. And if they're talking about you, it means you're doing something right. If they make up stories, it's even better.
And I think it comes back to, you know, I've always said believe in what is possible, but I also say a lot, you know, you have to focus on your voice and your vision.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's very easy to let the noise and all the other things get in the way. And that was something that over the last 2 months, which I specifically took off 2 months. I still had a few music things I was doing, but with this business, I really took a break. And the biggest piece of that break was off tech. It was like getting off my phone, getting off my computer, because one of the things that I was complaining about to myself and to my husband and to my therapist was I couldn't seem to access my creative side. I couldn't seem to access
That would be so hard for you.
Emotional sort of connection to that. And there was so much stuff that was tied into why that I won't go into, but that we're unpacking and that I'm feeling a million times better about. But the bottom line was, as soon as I started putting my phone away at night, not jumping on my computer first thing in the morning, spending that time just with my journal and my cup of coffee, taking the walks, sitting at the piano, writing, and listening to my own voice again. Because there's so much coming at us all the time.
Yes, 100%.
And part of my brain fog issue also had to do with just like it was tapping out by going through the phone and looking at all the social media and everything that was coming at us. And, being on the computer was exhausting me. And so I think that's something to be said. There is something to be said about taking a tech break too, and also taking a break.
Yeah. I've encouraged clients to do that. I've encouraged clients to do
But
that.
it was a game changer for me, because I think that stopping the flow of information that was coming into my brain helped my brain settle down.
Neat.
And then allowed some of that flow to start to come back. And I think I'm seeing a lot of that in several people that I know, that it's sort of, they're struggling with motivation, they're struggling with creativity, they're struggling with all of those things. And I think a lot of it has to do with just the bombardment factor of information. And sometimes I want to go back to like 1990 when we didn't have all of this stuff,
It is tough to be a kid today, that's for sure.
It really is.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah, that and an adult.
So this has been so fun, and I know we could probably talk all day, but you are working on a book.
I am.
Can you tell us about that?
Sure. So I have a children's book that is already, it's with the illustrator. It's not ready to be unveiled, but that'll go to market very soon. The other one is with a working title, but it talks about these pivot points. It talks about resilience. It talks about fulfillment and communication and connection. And it's a fun little read. I would like to say so myself. But I think putting it out there, there's a lot of ways that individuals will be able to connect with the text, the content, some of the guiding questions. And I hope it continues for them to have an internal conversation and a conversation with those that are their people, their posse, their group, their special person. I that's my hope of it. If not, it felt good. I did a lot of writing last year, a lot of writing. I wasn't prepared to be like front facing, to have it out there and be on video, but a lot of writing. And so I've worked with somebody to wither down pages and pages and pages to put it into context of some like more key thoughts. And it surrounds pivot points. And it all started with what I called the walk. And the walk was the amount of people I have met truly walking 18 holes day after day after day, watching my son golf and being all over the country doing so. And the most rich part of the entire experience is the walk and who you meet with and the conversations that you have and the people that you encounter. And sometimes just that quiet inner voice that you have time to connect with, and you're out in these beautiful, spacious areas. And that's how it started. And then I would journal things from it. And then it came into more concrete, being an educator, having had gone through doctoral studies, having had been, chapter 1, 2, 3, and then stop. And then husband gets sick, husband die, try to come back to writing. And I was like, ugh, not even of interest anymore. Yeah. I always liked writing. And so this is just a different way that I've gone about it.
I'm excited for you.
Thank you.
I have a book in me too. That's on
We all do.
my list.
We all have a book in us.
At least 3, I think.
All have a book in us.
But did you want to read a little bit? You had brought a little excerpt.
I did. Yeah, sure.
We would love that.
happy to.
I would love that. I will assume you will love it too.
Let me put on my reading voice. Life is not a straight line. In all of our lives, there are switchbacks, unexpected curves, and U-turns. Moments we can't see around the next bend. I call these pivot points. As much as we try to manage and predict and steer our lives in a certain direction, the truth is that pivot points are outside of our control. With pivot points, the only real certainty is that they will, at one point or another, happen to all of us. Unpending our lives, our plans, our sense of control, and even our sense of clarity. As devastating as these inflection points may feel, I believe that if we can see them as opportunities, if we can find a way to move through them with grace, with resilience, and with deep self-trust, pivot points can become catalysts rather than catastrophes. This mindset is the difference in being leveled by life's pivot points or leveling up through them instead.
Oh, I love it. I can't wait for the whole thing. I'm very excited to hear the whole thing.
Thank you.
My last question, and I don't even know if we need to do it because my last question was going to be, what do you want to leave people with? But I think you just did.
Yeah.
I think you did.
I think we did. I think we answered it.
Is there anything else you want to share before we wrap up today?
No, it's been a wonderful experience to come do this with you. It's so fun. I feel like dream becoming reality, and we're both getting after it. You have sat at the table with me many times, coaching me through, and it's kind of fun to see that you have a successful student on the other side. Yeah. We're both carrying on great work, and I love what we're doing for the county and beyond. So I'm excited to continue to partner with you. I will always pick up that phone or that call, and I think you would do the same for me. So
absolutely,
I'm excited to watch your journey and watch this grow. You have some great content, and
I think 2025 is going to be the year for both of us.
I think it is.
Because the growth
It already
and just
is.
making a
I don't
difference,
think
and
it
it already
already
is because
is.
I get to sit across
It's
and
out
have this
there.
conversation. So, and I've always wanted to be like the Oprah, and I've always done it behind closed doors with students and clients,
Sure.
and in those, but never really pushed myself out there in the social media world or on the interwebs, as I like to call it. And so I'm finally doing that, taking the work I've done, out into the world more.
Bravo to
Not
you.
just as a performer, singer. So I'm excited. I can't think of a better person to have had on
Oh, thank you.
for this first video interview that I'm doing, and I'm hoping it's going to be the first of many, and that
It
you'll
will
come
be
back
for you.
and we can have more conversations like this as we go. Yeah. So, Kimberly, how can people find you, and
Sure.
who is your ideal client?
Those are great questions. I would say start on LinkedIn, Kimberly Dahlem. I've been word of mouth until now, and then the last podcast generated quite a few reach outs from individuals on LinkedIn. So I would start there. As for my target audience, it can be an individual or smaller companies that want to help make change. I would invite an initial conversation, and then I'm pretty choosy as to who I take on, but I would say more of the secret sauces with individuals. That has been probably the most rewarding. So it has to be a mutual connection, just as you and I had a mutual connection. I love that I'm in that place and space of life, but try it out. Look me up.
Awesome. So
Give me a message.
I'll put Kimberly's LinkedIn link in the show notes so people can get there quickly if they want,
Sounds
if that's
great.
okay with you.
Yeah.
And I'm so thrilled and grateful that you
I am
agreed
too.
to come and do this with
am
me,
too.
and
Thank you.
came into my little office, and we launched my video version of my podcast. So have a great day, everybody. Thanks again to Kimberly Dahlem for joining me today, and we will
Thank you,
see you
everybody.
soon.
See ya.
Have a great day.